The first thing I noticed was that my coffee was floating. Not drifting, not gently wobbling in defiance of gravity, but calmly hovering in front of my face like it had decided it was finally too important for gravity to boss it around. I stared at it for a long second, blinked twice, and concluded that either I was about to achieve enlightenment, or I had finally broken my brain by microwaving metal spoons again. Then the air folded. It didn't explode or crack or shatter. It folded, like someone took the room and pinched it between invisible fingers. The walls went very quiet. The noise of the city outside thinned into nothing. My phone screen froze on a video of a cat failing to jump, which felt like a very disrespectful way to end the world. She stepped through that fold as if it were a curtain. She looked like a human woman at first glance, and I almost felt relieved until my eyes adjusted and I saw her ears. Long, elegant, slightly lifted, like they were always listening to secrets that space didn't want to share with me. She looked at me the way someone looks at a puzzle they already solved but is double-checking for fun. "Be careful, human," she said, and the words didn't travel through the air. They appeared in my head, warm and calm and very official. "I am no ordinary woman. I'm not an ordinary man either," I said automatically. "I once assembled a bookshelf without crying." I immediately regretted speaking. She didn't blink. Not once. I mentally noted that as deeply unsettling but impressive. The space between us felt watched, like the molecules were standing at attention. I tried to casually take a step back and succeeded only in bumping into my own chair and very nearly dying in a slow, humiliating way. I grabbed the floating coffee cup to stabilize myself. Politely stayed in place, refusing my help. "I chose you," she said, and this time the air vibrated slightly, as if reality itself cleared its throat. "That's wonderful," I replied, nodding like someone who understood things. "Is this for a survey? A cult? A very exclusive gym membership?" Her gaze softened. Her long ears shifted slightly, and for a strange moment, she looked uncertain, as if what she was about to say had shaken stars, but was now stuck trying to make itself understood in my very small kitchen. "Through a rite older than your planets," she continued. "Through blood that remembers before memory existed, I selected you." I looked around my apartment. The sink was full of dishes. My socks didn't match. There was a mysterious smell I had been ignoring for 2 days. "You might want to return me," I said gently. "I think there's been a cosmic mistake." The walls shimmered faintly. Lights flickered but didn't go out. Time felt thick, like syrup poured over everything. And underneath it all, I felt something else. Something like a thread being tied quietly around my chest. Somewhere far away, I knew without knowing how, machines had woken up. Ancient sensors blinked from sleep. Very angry and very organized beings began to argue over charts and alarms. She stepped closer, and the room felt smaller, like it was respectfully making space for her existence. "Your fear is logical," her voice said inside my mind. "Your humor is unexpected. I use it to survive conversations," I said. "And tax season." For a moment the tension cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a small, almost invisible fracture. Her lips twitched, and that scared me far more than the floating coffee. By the time my ceiling peeled open like badly applied wallpaper, I had already decided that if this was a dream, my brain was extremely overqualified for horror production. The air bent again, but this time it didn't just fold. It rolled, like a wave moving through a room that had never seen an ocean. The floor went transparent. I could see stars under my feet, which felt like a design flaw. I tried not to look down, failed, and grabbed onto the edge of the kitchen counter, which was now floating beside me like a loyal, confused pet. "This is not an efficient environment," her voice said in my mind. "It's a rental," I replied. The deposit was terrible. The space around us stretched, unfolded, and reorganized itself with the casual confidence of something that had rearranged universes before. One moment I was in my apartment, the next I was standing on a surface that definitely wasn't a floor but was pretending very hard to be one. Light didn't come from lamps. It just existed, soft and intelligent, like it had opinions. Her long ears shifted slightly as she moved closer. I noticed they caught the light in a way that made them look less frightening and more thoughtfully dangerous. "You have been marked," she said. "The bond is awake." I squinted. "Is it visible?" Because I did not emotionally prepare for a glowing destiny tattoo. I felt it before I understood it. A warmth, not painful, not overwhelming, but steady, like a second pulse that didn't belong to my body until it suddenly did. Inside my chest, something old and quiet turned, like a key inside a lock that had been waiting longer than fear. Around us, the stars weren't random. They formed faint, moving patterns, lines of light linking distant points. I realized with a slow, unpleasant understanding that they were watching. Not us specifically, but the space where we stood. "So," I said carefully, hypothetical question, "if rival empires were to find out about this, would they send lawyers, assassins, or both?" "They have already noticed," she answered. Of course they had. Somewhere far beyond what my brain could map, alarms that had been silent for centuries woke up. Red lights flashed in places where red was probably not a natural color. Creatures with far too many ranks and medals began shouting at glowing walls. I couldn't see any of it, but I felt it like static crawling across my skin. The floor beneath us shivered. "They are slow," she added, "but they are relentless." "I'm slow too," I said, "but mostly just in the mornings." Something slammed against the invisible edges of our space. Not physically, more like a pressure change in reality itself, like being too close to a very rude thunderstorm that operated between dimensions. She lifted her hand, and the air obeyed. Not dramatically, not explosively. It just listened. Suddenly, a curved wall of pale light formed around us, humming quietly, like a polite barrier that didn't want to make a scene. "Are we in a spaceship?" I whispered. "This is a crossing chamber," she corrected. "Ah, of course. I hate it when I confuse those." The chamber began to move, though there was no sense of speed. The stars slid, folded, and rearranged, turning into unfamiliar constellations. I felt weightless and very aware that I had not updated my will. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something behind her calm. Not fear, not doubt, something like curiosity tangled with responsibility. "You are not as fragile as you believe," she said. "I once cried over a dead houseplant," I replied. For a split second, laughter echoed in my mind that wasn't mine. The pressure outside grew stronger. The barrier dimmed and brightened, as if the universe itself was arguing about letting us through. And inside my chest, that second pulse grew steadier, louder, and far too real to ignore. The silence came suddenly, not as emptiness, but as relief. The kind of quiet that settles after storms have burned themselves out. The crossing chamber softened, its walls fading until they were no longer walls but gentle boundaries between what had been and what was about to begin. I was standing on something that felt solid in a way I trusted now. Not because it explained itself, but because I had stopped needing it to. The stars around us didn't spin in panic anymore. They moved like breathing. She stood beside me, and I didn't feel small. That surprised me. Far away, I could feel the last echoes of the rival empires collapsing inward. Not exploding, not burning, but simply losing their grip. Their machines went quiet. Their alarms stopped screaming. Their great arguments froze mid-sentence. When you choose healing over control, it turns out most tyrants don't know what to do and simply malfunction. I found that deeply comforting. "It's over," I said. "It is balanced," she replied. Inside my chest, the second pulse was no longer foreign. It wasn't loud. It wasn't demanding. It was steady, like a companion walking beside my own heartbeat instead of trying to replace it. I realized I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I wasn't even trying to understand it completely. I was cooperating with it. That also surprised me. The connection between us didn't feel like chains or commands. It felt like alignment. Two long, tired lines of existence finally running parallel instead of crashing into each other. What happens now? I asked. She considered that. Her long ears shifted slightly, and I noticed I no longer found that unsettling or strange. It just felt like noticing someone smile. Now, she said, you live. I let out a small laugh. I almost died for that advice. We began to walk, and the world didn't resist us. It unfolded instead. The sky above shifted into colors that didn't hurt to look at, only to remember later. Distant ships, once sharp with threat, now drifted like forgotten arguments. I realized slowly that I had changed. I wasn't just surviving things anymore. I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. The fear that used to sit in my chest like a permanent resident had packed its bags. In its place was something quieter and stronger. Trust. Not blind. Not naive. Just steady. I looked at her. So, no more assassins? Unlikely, she said. Unlikely isn't no, I pointed out. Her voice brushed my thoughts again, softer now. You are learning. We reached the edge of the chamber, or maybe the edge of something much bigger. The boundary shimmered, and beyond it was a shape of a future that wasn't frightening. I thought about my old apartment, about floating coffee, about how small my world had been without me ever feeling trapped by it. I'm still going to make jokes, I warned her, even in galactic peace. She paused, and then I felt it. Actual laughter inside my head, clear and real, and strangely warm. I would be disappointed if you did not, she said. The bond between us didn't tighten. It didn't demand. It simply existed like gravity that no longer needed to prove itself. And when we stepped forward together, there was no fear in me. Just curiosity. Just calm. Just the quiet certainty that being chosen had never been about power. It had been about becoming someone who could finally choose back.